The first mental block European leaders have is the intuition trap. We're primed to think of threats as external. And so we say, how can America be as dangerous as Russia or China? Surely Russia and China are worse than America. And the answer is yes, they are worse. But they are outside our house, and America is inside our house. It has lived inside our house since 1949 without attacking us. But in 2024, that changed. And so we need to understand that a petty criminal with keys to our house can do more damage than a more serious criminal outside the gate. The second block European leaders have is contagion obliviousness. The risk of an American move on Greenland or another ally is not that Britain and France will be next. It's rather that the longer America sits inside Europe's systems, the more Europe will become like America and elect its own Trumps. The third block European leaders have is the change fallacy. This is the wishful thinking that Trump can change. Trump treats European nations as subordinate and expendable, with the contradictory attitude, you don't matter to us, therefore you must do what we say. The instinctive response of European leaders is to think that if they obey the second part, do as America says, they can change the first part, we don't care about you. But that thought is, to use a technical term, childish. The fourth mental block European leaders have is the Trump is an aberration fallacy. This is the comforting thought that Trump may not change, but he'll eventually go away. So European leaders keep confusing Trump, who will go away, with the conditions that produced him and the conditions that produce authoritarianism, which won't go away. So let's ground ourselves. Our democracies are coming out of the bay and going into open water. The waters will be rocky. But that doesn't mean that the bay is the normal and the open ocean is the aberration. The normal European leaders want to return to is itself an aberration. It was a product of fleeting and fragile historical conditions. So the psychology of this is something as follows. The world doesn't match my blueprint, and I'm going to take my surprise at the world as evidence for the fact that the world has to return back to normal. But it won't. The fifth block European leaders have is the black box fallacy. European leaders keep asking what Trump wants, what concessions would satisfy him, what off-ramp would calm him down. These are the wrong questions to ask about a leader with a personality disorder, because what he really wants is narcissistic supply. So stop asking what's inside Trump's head. Even when Trump looks inside Trump's head, he doesn't see much. So focus on you, not on him. And this takes us to 9 practical steps European leaders can take against the threat emanating from the United States.
You got a lot to answer for.
Step number 1. Articulate Europe's core interests. Start your list. Europe's core interests are democracy, sovereignty, non-dependence on Washington, stopping Putin. Coordinate your list with other European leaders. You can't defend what you haven't named, and preferably named in unison with fellow European colleagues. Step 2. Don't let uncertainty become passivity. Trump uses unpredictability as a weapon, partly to get what he wants, but partly as an end in itself. He unsettles for the sake of unsettling. So stop waiting for clarity from a man for whom lack of clarity is the point, and focus instead on making Europe less structurally vulnerable to whatever it is that he does next. Step 3. Slow the collapse of trust at home through clarity and truthfulness. Put trust at the center of everything you do and say. When Mark Rutte says that Trump is showing great leadership, he may think that he's being diplomatic. But voters hear something else. They hear a man in a suit telling them that the building is not on fire, even though they can see the flames. And every time a European leader does that, they spend a little bit of that trust in institutions that we can no longer replenish. So your first question should not be how does sucking up to Trump benefit the US-Europe relationship? It should be how does sucking up to Trump damage trust in European democracies? And if you answer that question well, then what you should do with Trump will follow naturally from it. Step 4. Propose principles for a new global order even before you know what it looks like. Say to yourself, I am starting the conversation. Mark Carney at Davos got close to doing this. He named the moment, the old world is gone and the new world hasn't been born yet, and he told middle powers what to do. But you need to go further, and that means doing at least 3 things. First, propose principles for a new global order. For instance, sovereignty, the indivisibility of security. I am not secure unless you are secure. Number 2, try to remedy the domestic causes of the breakdown of the international order. The collapse of the post-1989 global order is secondary to domestic democratic decline in Western countries. Number 3, formulate a message about NATO that is, and this is hard, bold and conservative at the same time. For instance, NATO is the current answer. It is not dead. But it is also not the destination. European security cannot rest on NATO 25 years from now. Step 5. Do not make weakness a self-fulfilling prophecy. European leaders half know that their brand of politics, technocratic centrism, no longer has the trust of voters. And their response is retreat. We can't make bold moves internationally because we're already too exposed at home. We've got our own Trumps at home breathing down our necks. But this is exactly backwards. Every time you avoid a difficult fight because you're afraid you're going to lose it, you make the fight that's going to come next harder to win. And you accelerate your defeat to authoritarian populism because it thrives on you being meek and passive. Step number 6. Hit Trump hard. Criticize him. He will be able to take it. You can tell Trump, your war is a mess and I'm furious about it. He won't cut you out. In fact, he'll try to please you. He'll try to find something he can do for which you'll praise him. Here's what Anthony Scaramucci said about this on this channel a week ago.
I will tell you that the leader that has gotten under his skin the most in the West is Prime Minister Carney. You know, Prime Minister Carney has gone at him super hard. And as sure as I'm sitting here, the person in the West that he talks to the most of all the Western leaders is Prime Minister Carney.
If you're the UK Prime Minister, you can say, I'm hitting you hard and you're not going to cry about it. And by the way, I'm also going to send you the king and you like the king and the king likes you and it's going to be very tremendous. But that doesn't mean I like your war. I still hate your stupid war. Step 7. Think of your career, for goodness sake. People often ask me, when will European leaders grow a backbone and stand up to Trump? The answer is, when they're confident that it helps more than hurts their career. That confidence is now justified. It helps your career to stand up to Trump. If you attach yourself to Trump's misadventures, your voters will punish you. And it's worse than that. They'll punish future responsible politicians in your country by losing trust in the institutions that are needed to keep your democracy on the road. So the electoral logic now points in favor of boldness. Act accordingly. Step 8. Call out Trumpist attacks on Europe for what they are. Trump's circle does not view Europe as the enemy. They view Europe as the enemy within. This is why their attacks on Europe are as shrill as they are. They're way more triggered by Europe than is natural for a regular geopolitical rivalry. They believe about Europe what Putin believes about Ukraine. Putin thinks that an independent Ukraine is a threat to his domestic power. So Trump's circle see Europe that keeps its democratic institutions intact as a threat to Trumpism in US domestic politics. call this out. When Vance does his speeches about European civilizational collapse, he is not talking about US foreign policy interests. He's talking about the interests of Trumpism keeping power in domestic US politics, and we have to call that out. 9. Use Trump as sparring practice. Trumpism will collapse. It's too tied to the infantilized deformation of a particular man's personality. But Trumpism going away doesn't make it an aberration. In reality, Trumpism is a warm-up act for the more serious authoritarians to come in the 2030s. So get your boxing gloves on and spar with Trump. Use Trump as practice for how you're going to deal with the more disciplined authoritarians to come in the future. They're going to be representatives of the ideological wash doing the rounds across the globe right now, which is a kind of blend of monarchism and might is right politics. And to understand how Trump and Putin are both exponents of this ideological wherewithal, watch this video next.